buzzwords will keep coming, right? Some will matter, but most won't. So if you blindly, like trust them, I think you're wasting your time and you're wasting basically an opportunity for your brand to grow as well. So if you build a technically solid, user-first website with credible content and brand authority, you will thrive no matter how search evolves. So in 26 and beyond, the best SEO isn't about chasing what's new, it's about mastering what is timeless. Hi, this is Nitin Manchanda. This is SEO in 2026.
Nitin, what's your number one SEO tip for 2026?
Yeah, so my tip is that don't get lost in buzzwords and stay focused on the fundamentals.
And what are examples of some buzzwords that people get lost in?
Oh, a lot of them. I mean, people talk about AI first indexing, zero click optimization, voice search dominance, entity first strategies, and much more. And nowadays, they're also talking about AEO, GEO, a lot of different names, right? But it's essentially SEO.
So, I mean, has SEO changed much over the last few years with the advent of AI search? Or do you think the fundamentals mean that SEO is staying largely the same?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I think it has been evolving, at least since I started my career back in 2012, right? Every year, every 6 months, I was hearing SEO is dead because of something new, because, there's a new shining stone there. But yeah, I think the foundation stays there. Everything you talk about, core web vitals, AI first indexing, or, AEO, GEO, whatever, right? At the core of it, we're just talking about the fundamentals, how we take care of tech SEO, how we ensure that the content is written for user first, how we are optimizing for a better user experience. So everything which is at the core has remained the same, I think, since I started working in SEO.
Got you. Okay. So how would you summarize the core fundamentals that the SEO today needs to stay grounded in?
Yeah, so there are multiple of them. So one, I would say, talking about fundamentals purely. So make sure your website is crawlable, right? If your website is not crawlable, be it Google, Yahoo, Yandex, based on whatever search engine you are optimizing it for, right? If they're not able to crawl your website, you are screwed. You won't be able to see yourself on SERP, right? And then publish content which is answering a user intent, right? You're writing that content for the user, not for search engine bots only. If a user doesn't find this content meaningful, even if you generate that traffic, you won't be able to sustain those rankings. And that traffic would not be able to convert to what you want to essentially achieve. And then delivering great user experience is another fundamental I would put emphasis on, because if you don't have great experience, you would not be able to sustain those users with you. You won't be able to keep them with you forever. And I think, yeah, then whatever traffic you're generating is absolutely meaningless. And search engine bots also catch these signals that if a user is landing on a website and then they don't like it for whatever reason, right, they would go back, probably never come back on a website again, right? They also do not want to promote such brands, such websites.
So you used an interesting phrase there that you had to ensure that users found your content to be meaningful. How do you ascertain as to whether or not users are finding your content meaningful?
Yeah, so I think the most important thing is understanding what a user is looking for, right? So your keyword research, for example, again, very traditional approach, but that can set the base here, right? You start with that, try to cluster your keyword research outcome to understand around what topics people are searching. And then you also look at your user journey and then try to map these different clusters in that journey to make sure that you have a one-to-one mapping. If your users are looking for something and you think you are able to cover that on your landing pages, through the content, or, and content is not just textual content, right? It is also images, it is also videos. So yeah, that's how you can think of mapping that content on your website, what user is looking for, and therefore you can to some extent understand whether you're able to map it or not. And what can help you, measure whether you have written this content for user and it is helping a user. That is the KPIs you can look at. For example, your engagement on the website, your conversion rate, right? And much more.
And you say that technical SEO is non-negotiable. What aspects of technical SEO are absolutely key in 2026?
Yeah, absolutely. Technical SEO has been non-negotiable, I think. since the beginning, because that sits at the core of fundamentals. And talking about like some of the those non-negotiable, technical SEO aspects, I would say first is core web vitals. Definitely, you want to have a website which is fast loading, not just for users. Of course, it helps your users as well, but you also want to make sure that whatever search engine crawler is coming to your website, they're able to easily and quickly able to crawl your content without wasting much of crawl budget on these pages. And then properly implemented schema markup also helps, because a web page is very unorganized. You can't expect like any crawler would come, crawl my page and would be able to understand what I have, right? That's not how web works. So schema a markup can help you communicate to search engine bots. You can tell that, hey, you are on a blog page where the title is this. It's written by, person X. And here, from content perspective, these are things we are covering. So schema brings that structure, which helps any search engine understand what this content is all about. And then keeping your architecture, information architecture, super clean helps a lot, right? Because I've seen a lot of websites where they have a lot of pages, amazing pages, but they're not linked anywhere. Those are orphan pages, which means even search engine bots, when they crawl, they are skeptical whether those pages are valuable for you or not, because they're not part of the architecture. So keeping it clean to help your user understand what they're looking for and how they find it, and also helping search engines can help you a lot here. And then also, when you talk about content optimization, you should not thinking about only text, but also think about images, videos, because they can also generate a lot of meaningful traffic for you, which converts.
And you also say evolving search patterns need a 360-degree content strategy. What is a 360-degree content strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this is about understanding your users. For example, let's talk about a travel brand, right? When I'm searching for some travel destinations, maybe I'm looking for some inspiration, and I don't want to just read text. I also want to see some videos. If you talk about travel company, right, they might publish a blog article where you would have a TikTok type 3 minutes video talking about your 2 days itinerary for Paris. That is what you're looking for, right? And providing structured FAQs for folks who are looking for textual content, right? So you can also put it there. And then you can also think about adding some nice images, maybe from the real users, right? Everyone loves UGC. And if your users are talking about, hey, I followed this and, I had great experience in Eiffel Tower, Disney, like whatever you're mentioning in that guide, I think people would appreciate it. They would have more trust as well on it.
You talk about trust, and obviously authority is a key part of what you want to be delivering as part of your content as well. How do you ensure that your content supports authority and trust?
Yeah. So I think, again, it's another buzzword, EAT. So a lot of SEOs, were talking about it at least a couple of years back, madly, right? But I think it plays a role, right? Where E stands for expertise, the second E stands for experience, and then we have authoritativeness and trustworthiness. So these are some factors which search engines basically consider to understand whether they can trust your brand or not, right? So this is how you build a relationship of trust with them. And once they know that your brand is something that they can trust on, right, they would be more than happy to rank you on search engines, in SERP, to ensure that users also click on your website and consume that content, because now they trust, right? And then they have further trust signals when users engage, do not go back on SERP to click somewhere else, right? These are additional trust factors, trust signals that they consider.
And how do you decide what type of content to publish? So do you review the user journey and actually have a typical type of content that's more likely to resonate with different stages of the user journey?
Yes, absolutely. So I think talk about travel or e-commerce, right? So I think in every niche, there is different type of content which users prefer to consume at different, stage of their journey. Or in fact, it also matters on how they're searching. Are they sitting at home and looking for some videos, or they're traveling and maybe just looking for some textual or image searches because they don't want to hear, for whatever reason. A user would be looking for different kind of content for different kind of queries, and you need to understand that. So one, you can of course do some competitor analysis to see what kind of content they have, how that's performing. Second, you can also run A/B tests to understand that, hey, I have itineraries, so let me just post an article which is textual only, Another one where I have some text and some images. Another one which also has a video, right? You see how the engagement changes, right? This will give you a direct signal explaining what it means, when you're adding a video on your blog article for users. So this gives you a good sign. And this engagement, of course, not just you are looking at it in your Google Search Console or Google Analytics, right? These are the KPIs which are easily, indirectly, probably, right, accessible by search engines as well. And they can also consume this data to understand that, hey, someone who's landing on a website, spending time engaging with the content. So I think you have content that they're looking for. So why not, rank you for more queries, more related queries, and because you deserve to rank better.
And when you talk about analyzing the performance of your competitors' content, are you just talking about how often it appears on the SERP, or are you able to go deeper into different metrics?
Yeah. I think mainly, how they're ranking, how they're able to sustain those rankings, because that is the byproduct of the engagement and other metrics, right? Unfortunately, for understanding engagement related metrics, of course, you can use tools like SEMrush, you can get some details, some insights on how they're doing, right? But I would say those are really top level KPIs and not giving you the depth you're looking for, right? So I would say just keep it easy for you, right? Just look at the kind of keywords they're ranking for. Are they able to sustain those rankings? Are they increasing the number of organic keywords they're ranking for? So I think these are some KPIs which will help you understand how they're performing on SERP and how Google, or for that matter, other search engines are respecting their organic presence.
And you say that brand authority is the new backlink. How do you measure brand authority?
Yeah. So nowadays, I think there are a lot of super nice platforms that you can use, from Profound to Peak.ai to many more, which tell you about your brand, like citations. So how many times you're appearing in LLMs, right? Or how many times you are getting a branded click from LLMs. So I think these are really good KPIs these days, because brand definitely plays a role, right? And you want to see again some branded traffic, which should be attributed to SEO these days, because yeah, whatever you're doing, it is going to give you some visibility, in LLMs as well. So yes, I think brand mentions, brand citations definitely play a huge role, and that should definitely be considered, something like, backlinks all days.
Okay, and so obviously you're a fan of adapting, but also adapting without chasing every single trend. So how do you know which trends to chase and which trends to leave?
Yeah. I think the worst thing in SEO world is, like, you hear these buzzwords and the whole, community just runs behind that, hey, core web vitals, it becomes the biggest thing, right? Even if your, site score is 90, you would chase that buzzword and optimize for another 10, from 90 to 100. But that's, I think, incorrect. Of course, some of these, buzzwords are also meaningful. So you should definitely hear and, but process them wisely, right? And while you're processing, right, think about the framework of fundamentals. For example, when AI generated answers dominate search, right, some companies panic and produce thousands of AI articles, right? On the other hand, there were companies, they slow down and they ask themselves, what do users still need beyond the AI box, right? They double down on in-depth guides, interactive tools, community-driven QAs, and yeah, the second group one in this case. So I think understanding what the new buzzword means for the users and for their growth from a sustainability perspective, right? It's very, very important. And if you do that and play this game wisely within the framework of your fundamentals, you definitely can create a nice case study. But if you just start running behind, you will waste your time. And essentially, in most of the cases, you won't achieve anything.
But you've been an SEO, as you say, since 2012, and it's probably easier for you to actually make an educated decision as to whether or not some piece of exciting news should be a trend or should be something that you follow. But what about an SEO that's just starting out or 1 or 2 years into their career? How should they go about making a decision in terms of what to listen to?
Yeah, so I would say, like, whatever they're hearing about, right? So, of course, do more research, understand what people are publishing about, especially the ones who have their first hand case studies on this. Second, run your own experiments. This is very, very important, right? Something that works for one industry might not work totally for another industry in SEO world. When you run your own experiments for tiny things, you conclude your own theories. I think that gives you more confidence. That gives you first-hand data to prove whether whatever your hypotheses are, right, whether they are right or they need some adjustment. So I think this plays a huge role. So I would say take everything that you hear with a pinch of salt and move wisely.
Listen, what's the key takeaway from the tip you shared today?
Yeah, so my key takeaway would be, buzzwords will keep coming, right? Some will matter, but most won't. So if you blindly, trust them, I think you're wasting your time and you're wasting basically an opportunity for your brand to grow as well. So if you build a technically solid, user-first website with credible content and brand authority, you will thrive no matter how search evolves. So in 26 and beyond, the best SEO isn't about chasing what's new, it's about mastering what is timeless.
Nitin Manchanda is founder and chief SEO consultant at Botpresso. Find out more over at botpresso.com. Nitin, thanks so much for being part of SEO in 2026.
Thank you so much, David.
I've been your host, David Bain. Get your copy of SEO in 2026, the book, over at SEOin2026.com.